Oxford Financial Crimes Against Humanity. This is an explosive, epic Facebook Live. I think I'm the first to do it ever in the world. And Americans live on a different financial system than so many others in the world. The Commonwealth, the European Union, they run on a system where they literally inflate people and put those people in the seat of responsibility and accountability for those central government banks and all what are called chartered banks underneath that crown system. It's done throughout the European Union. Again, all Commonwealth countries. It's UK right through to Canada. Canada's one of the worst. They create the most fraud against the people of Canada. And I did a part one of this several years ago, and I had high-profile conservatives who had no idea, and it was a real eye-opener for them. I had a lot of people that have been loyal, diehard conservatives in this country actually join narratives on taking this great system of the United States and really putting it forward for the people in a republic, a real we the people republic. And that education started with the fact that when it came to financial borrowing of average Joe Janes in the United States, the inflation follows the lender, the financial institution, not the person who borrows the money. So a financial institution has to do their due diligence. They must understand financial systems. They must be accountable to the people, because when they issue loans in the United States, there's no reoccurring renewal dates. It's one set on that day in that inflation, and it's set in stone. So, for example, when an American gets a mortgage on a home, when they work that out in a 20, 25, 30-year mortgage, that inflationary interest rate stays with them for as long as they wish. Now, they can go out and buy out the loan with another lender when interest rates are lower, but they don't have to. It's beholden to the people, not the financial institutions who are what one with the central bank. So in the Canadian model, every year, if your credit's a low score, or every 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, best credit rating, you're an all-star, you're going to get a 5-year renewal, meaning your mortgage will be renewed by the institution to account for system inflation and changes in interest rates. That's a rigged system against you and me. That's part one. Folks, I'm here today, after so many years, to teach part two, the savings fraud of our Canadian system, led by people like Mark Carney, who's been in charge effectually in the UK, in this British Empire financial system that's that old, that which is not anything like America. Today we're going to go into savings plans, specifically known as ESPs, Canadian Education Savings Plans, that also too work effectually to make sure the institutions are the beneficiaries of inflations, and every Canadian saver is the victim of, meaning you eat the inflation, your education savings plans are neutralized. This goes absolutely for RSPs and much, much more. And I'm going to give this basic education. It's versus the United States of America. They have education savings plans too. They're called a 529. You've heard of other names for their pension plans. A one-tier, one-size-fits-all pension plan for all Americans. What you put in is what you get. And your employers pay that stuff. In Canada, the government says, hey, Canadians, come invest in ESPs through our chartered bank system attached to the central government. We're going to create a scheme. We call it At the Day an ESP. You know, you have a child in life. So I'm going to give you an example. You're a responsible, saving Canadian. You're a grandparent or a parent. Well, on that day you have a child, your whole world changes. I know my life changed when my daughters were born. And parents, grandparents, they take out what are called ESPs in Canada. America has them too. Again, the 529. We're going to do this comparative analysis. So what happens is you take it out on that day. So for me, my oldest daughter, 19 years ago, it was taken out. Modest $50 a month. All these years later, with the government match of up to $7,200, it ended up being $19,000. This is an example, okay? So, likewise in the United States, Americans do the 529. They save up on the exact same as me. Another parent just like me in the United States of America does the same thing in the American model. 19,000 USD. While college, universities, tuition goes up, inflation, everything increases. What happens in the American 529 model is you're allowed to withdraw whatever the annual expense of tuition and books and all of that are in the 529 model. Meaning you can use as much as you need of that 19,000 USD you saved for 19 years for your child to go to college or university. Whatever the expense is, whatever the inflations become, that's what it is. Well, Canada's chartered banks, along with Canada's post-secondary and universities, made a change. They locked everybody in on the day they took out their ESPs. Never changing it, never upping it. They said you can take out a maximum of $7,200 a calendar year. And what's happened is interest and inflation has come and gone. Institutions charge more than ever for tuition, for books, for all of it. In fact, in the last 19 years, it's more than gone up 3 times what it was 19 years ago. So lo and behold, you go to register your child in the program, they've now broken it down into quarter tuition years, because now your ESPs can only be used in one of those quarters, even though it's for the whole year. You lose your ESPs. The 19,000 can't be used. You couldn't even use half of it in one calendar year. That's how Canada works. And what happens when a child goes in post-secondary 2 years? Whatever they don't use up in the ESP, you either pay back all the government side of it to cash it out and pay 20%, or you wave goodbye to it. So I found out, like so many thousands of responsible Canadians, you saved, you were ready. At the time you took it out, you had a model that would easily cover your children through all post-secondary. But because of inflation, they've never extended the ceiling of what you can withdraw from your ESPs. So you lose all of that. And if you attempt to cash them out, the money you put in, you must pay back all the government matching set. Or you leave what's left after having to pay your tuitions out of pocket for what your ESPs don't cover. Even though 19 years ago when you started the plan, it more than doubly covered the entire education program on that regime. You've lost all the inflation earning of your money all the way through, and you have to dig out of pocket, which is what I'm finding out with now quarterly tuitions to hide the true inflationary cost of Canadian education. This does not affect any Americans in their 529 system. Whatever the inflation is, whatever the cost of tuition is, you're allowed to use entirely your 529 to cover that inflationary cost. You can pay term after term and cover it. You don't lose anything. You don't get taxed. Your matching contributions are covered by the government, and as long as it's used for education, you get it. We could go on and on in this video about capital gains and everything that the Canadian financial system has done to rob Canadians. I can go through registered savings plans. I could go through all of that. Canada is an evil cabal scam from the old world financial system that more than a mass majority of the world lives under today, including cuckold Canadians. You would want to pray for Canada, the 51st state. This is just another one of the realizations and truth of what is Canada and what's absolutely wrong with it. My children will be robbed more than $10,000 of my money. It will never be utilized. It will go back to the government. I saved for nothing. The government, in fact, never matched anything when you look at really what they're going to take in the end, or what I'd be forced to pay back and be taxed with just to cash that out, because I can't utilize it, because I'm not allowed to go with inflation, because inflation is at the expense of the Canadian. You don't get a benefit. It's for the enrichment of the government. The government of Canada, all the chartered banks know they've been practicing this. They've been scamming Canadians for many, many decades. Nothing the Canadian government rolls out is even remotely comparable to that of the American system, because the American financial system is of and by the people, for the people. If the institutions can't manage the plans and money, making all that money that you've lent them over 19 years, then they don't deserve to be in business. This is not the same for Canada. It's why Canada and Oxford financials do so well, because it's at the absolute expense of their subjects underneath them, their low-class, low-tier subjects. Mark Carney knows, the chartered banks know. They've been doing these scams forever and a day, getting extremely rich while you all get extremely poor and you suffer. I've found now I have tremendously larger expenses from out of pocket for my children for tuition now, doubling in fact what had been planned throughout the last 19 years. You know, being a responsible Canadian, trusting the system, trusting the banks who are in bed with the government to lie, cheat, and steal from every Canadian. I urge people to reassess how you're going about your education savings plan, because if you're young and you're into that, or you're getting into it today, take my heed and my advice. You're being cucked in Canada. You'd be better off looking to educate your kids in the United States of America and taking out a 529 in the United States of America and planning to put your kids there. Because not only will tuition be calculated over an entire year of 8 months like Canada used to do, but your 529 is accessible entirely, whatever those expenses are, not a ceiling that you can't go over, and whatever goes over comes out of your pocket, and then whatever's remaining in your plan that even could at least majority cover that goes back to the government in the end, or you eat the taxes, you pay back the government matching at that $7,200. A complete cuckolding, a rape, total abuse of Canadians. Again, you can't go over $7,200 or you lose that matching contribution. That is the truth of Canada. That is the absolute fraud and epitome of a really nefarious, evil slave master system that they purposely do, knowing they're cheating you out of your money, knowing they're taking all their money back and in the end leaving you with nothing. So much is going to come in Canada against Canadians where literally you will own nothing and be happy. The very few who don't mind stepping on the many will grow. They call it second class. You play in their system. You collect property in their crown system. Super overinflated against the average Canadian. Will continue on and only get worse in mass immigration. And the financial crisis against Canadians will only grow. It's a pyramid scheme, a scam, and how people can't wake up to this, I don't know. But compare it to the American model and you'll find you're being cheated because you don't count. You're not worth nothing. You've never been worth nothing to them. And you're there at your expense for their great enrichment every step of the way. There's no accountability for them. There's no responsibility imposed on them. They can lie, cheat, and steal. America is throwing out Canadian chartered banks out of the American financial system. They've been aggressively doing this for 4 years, named over and over in serious crimes, fraud, extortion, money laundering, all of it, named, gone through huge multi-million-dollar, hundreds of millions of dollar fines that's placed on all you Canadians because they breached the American laws and the American system of we the people. Canadians should pray for that. A real future exists, and this is epic because this is another highlight of why America is so much superior to the Canadian model for just average people and why we should be Canada the 51st state. And Godspeed Donald J. Trump and the 51st state. That's my video to everybody. Share, get it out there. God bless. Bye now.